Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a fantasy film, 1,000 words. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. Jack is a successful, fast-talking, and self-centered top-shelf literary agent. He is the kind of guy who would do anything and say anything to close a deal and make a buck. Although he is full of lies, he does not receive any punishment for his sly ways. The young man who parks his car in front of the publishing house hopes that he could read his manuscript, but he goes through the motion every time. His nerdish assistant Aaron dreams of becoming an agent soon, and does the hard work for Jack every day, but Jack just abuses him. At a group meeting, the boss gives Jack a difficult task, that is to make the most powerful New Age religious guru, Dr. Sinjia, a contract author of the publishing house. Jack confidently proceeds to Sinjia's religious institute, and pretends to believe in Sinjia's path toward inner peace. After acting like a fanatic believer, Jack earns a chance to chat privately with Sinjia. So he immediately does away with his pretense, and lies through his teeth to land the client. The savvy doctor sees right through Jack, but he does not expose his lies. Instead, Sinjia leads Jack into the courtyard to enjoy the beautiful scenery, but Jack is so determined to close the deal with Sinjia that he continues to bombard him with his rapid-fire talking in his sly ways. During their conversation, Jack casually touches the Bodhi tree beside him and accidentally scratches his finger on the tree. In the end, Sinjia agrees to seal the pact with Jack to publish his book of New Age wisdom. Thrilled at his accomplishment, Jack visits his mother at a nursing home. To his disappointment, his mother, who suffers from Alzheimer's disease, regards him as a father who abandons his wife and children, which makes the pleasant meeting an embarrassing occasion. Back to his home, his wife suggests they should move into a more child-friendly neighborhood. But Jack refuses to sell his vast glass-walled bachelor's pad in the Los Angeles hills. While he is trying to dissuade his wife, a loud noise occurs in his yard. A Bodhi tree magically sprouts up in his backyard garden, something truly unimaginable for both Jack and the gardener. But Jack doesn't know that for every word he utters, the Bodhi tree would shed a leaf. The next day, Jack learns from his naive assistant Aaron that Sinjia's much-anticipated book is merely 5 pages long. Desperate for an explanation, Jack immediately questions Sinjia. But Sinjia replies that the truth is succinct. In their discussion, Jack mentions the Bodhi tree at his house. So Sinjia follows him to see what is happening. After close observation, Sinjia discovers that the Bodhi tree is closely related to Jack. It looks like the leaves would fall whenever Jack speaks up. Sinjia further deduces that the falling leaves have something to do with Jack's discomfort. Jack, however, does not buy Sinjia's hypothesis, and insists on cutting the tree. As soon as he wields the axe, he is pushed away by a strong invisible force. He stands up from the lawn to find a wound on his waist. At this point in time, Jack comes to realize that his fate is tied to the Bodhi tree. He consults Sinjia on what to do. But Sinjia has no idea how to break the bond between Jack and the plant. As Sinjia needs to attend a conference in another city, he has to take his leave. But he promises Jack to think of a solution in the next 3 days. So it is confirmed that for every word Jack says, the tree loses a leaf. Every leaf the tree loses, Jack comes closer to life's end. Since the tree has 1,000 leaves left, Jack has approximately 1,000 words left. For the first time in his life, Jack has to save his words, which is a deadly strike for the motor-mouth showboat. Jack feels at lost, and he even has a nightmare about himself spitting leaves while speaking. To his dismay, not only speaking but also writing depletes Jack's word quota. Hence Jack begins to communicate with others through spastic body languages. This proves unsuccessful, as the waiter orders many useless drinks and food for him. What's worse, Jack finds himself unable to help navigate the blind man through his ways. The blind man moves ahead with his instinct, and is almost knocked down by a car. Jack dashes out and wants to pull the blind man aside, and brings him across the junction. As soon as he reaches the office, he is introduced to a VIP, who has come a long way to visit them. The VIP asks Jack questions. He could only give him some short and vague answers. Unfortunately, the VIP is a French guy, and he does not quite get Jack's pronunciation. Without any choice, Jack repeats his statement 3 times. Just as the French VIP demands him to give a more elaborate explanation, 2 squirrels climb up the Bodhi tree at his house for a hormone game. This causes an itch all over his body, and he begins to wriggle on the spot. To avoid further embarrassment, Jack quickly dances his way out of the office. Comes to work lunchtime, Jack brings Aaron along for business negotiation. Sadly, on such a serious occasion, Aaron displays all kinds of disrespectful and unprofessional behaviors. Jack helplessly watches in embarrassment as Aaron fumbles the business negotiation. After losing the contract, Jack arrives at his son's class after work. The teacher asks him to sing, but Jack bluffs him off. His wife is so upset by his apparent lack of commitment and unwillingness to communicate. Limited by his word quota, it is all harder for Jack to explain his dilemma to the wife. So in the end, he just watches her storming out in anger. The next day, Jack becomes much better with his sign language and facial twitches. At least, ordering coffee at the cafe is no longer an issue for him. Jack's boss is unhappy about the ruined business negotiation, and she emphasizes that Jack has to close the next deal, by hook or by crook. When Jack learns that the client initiates a voice call meeting, he deploys the talking toy to answer a few simple questions. Suddenly the battery of the toy is going flat. Jack orders Aaron to bring in all the talking toys to his office. Jack manages to wrap up the deal with these toys. Jack's wife tries to reinvigorate their hormonity by wearing vinyl lingerie and breaking out furry handcuffs. However, Jack had no words to respond to his horny wife, and she is disappointed by his silence. Although Jack tries to explain, his wife kicks him out of the hotel room. Having lost his suit, Jack receives a call from Aaron, and is informed that Cinjia's 5-page book has been circulated. To prevent the buyer from seeing the book before making payment, Jack quickly rushes to the restaurant where boss and the buyer meet. Meanwhile, Jack's gardener is doing atomization fertilization on the Bodhi tree. As Jack's fate is intertwined with the tree, the heavy nourishment causes Jack to lose his senses. He starts behaving strangely, and makes a fool of his boss. Finally, Cinjia's thin pamphlet is brought to the table, exposing the truth which Jack has been hiding from the client. Needless to say, the deal is gone, and boss fires Jack immediately. Now that Jack loses his job and his wife deserted him, he enlists Aaron for help. In despair, he brings Aaron to his house, and explains his story to him via drawings. At first, Aaron just regards it as an absurd joke. But after surveying the tree, he realizes Jack's suffering is real. Jack then commands Aaron to observe the tree's changes, while he tries various ways to redeem himself. Doing good deeds is something he thought would prevent the Bodhi tree from losing its leaves. So the self-centered agent begins to buy bread, and distributes it to the poor and needy. However, as such actions are not sincere, nothing changes. A while later, Aaron has to return to the office on the accord of boss. Returning to his house, Jack is filled with sadness. He cannot help but sitting under the tree, and looking at the old photos. At sunset, he takes a moment to reflect, and by some strange power he is brought back to his childhood. But the young Jack regards this time traveler as his own father, who leaves them behind. Jack firmly says he is not the father, before he is pulled back to reality. That night, Jack has another meeting with Cinjia, hoping to get some advice from the spiritual guru. However, Cinjia says he has no cure for Jack's problem. He wants Jack to communicate with others with sincerity, so that he can find true inner peace. Jack then drowns his sorrows in wine and becomes really drunk. When he is about to commit suicide, Aaron appears in time to stop him from hurting himself. Jack awakens to find that only a few leaves are attached to the tree. Finally, he dismisses all the extra thoughts in his mind, to have a heartfelt conversation with the Bodhi tree, seeking its forgiveness. At this time, he receives a call from the elderly home, saying that his mother desires to celebrate her birthday with his late father. Jack does not know what he should do, because his father had died a long time ago. So he hangs up the call and turns to water the Bodhi tree. In the meantime, a butterfly rests on the pamphlet written by Cinjia, diverting Jack's attention to the book. Jack then empties out his anxiety to have a good read at the book, and decides to make some positive changes from the bottom of his heart. He first visits his wife, and confesses his love to her. And then he goes to the young man who always parks his car, and buys his manuscript with a huge amount of money. Later, Jack buys some dessert and heads for a leisurely walk on the pier. In this quiet moment, he feels more and more the significance of his family to him, so he plucks up his courage to visit his mother at the elderly home. When his mother calls his father's name, Jack responds to her. From his mother's words, Jack realizes how much he hated his father for years, and such resentment and grudges hinder him from finding his true self. At the last hour of his life, Jack kneels before his father's tomb, to reconcile with the young Jack. First, he makes peace with his childhood self. Then he looks at his father's grave and says, "I forgive you." As the last leaf of the Bodhi tree falls to the ground, Jack collapses in the graveyard in a torrential downpour. Jack is wakened up by Aaron's call, who informs him that the tree has miraculously revived in the storm. Eventually, Jack writes a book combining his experiences with Shinji's theories. The book's success helps secure Aaron's job as an agent. Jack has finally realized the most important thing in his life, and thanks Shinji for the enlightenment. In the end, Jack sells his luxurious bachelor's pad, and moves into the house which his wife is pleased with. Jack does not forget to transfer the Bodhi tree to his new house. Under the blessing of the tree, the happy and meaningful life of Jack now starts. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Peace out.